So I am here to talk to you about Project Mosul, which is, as you'll find, is one of these projects that simply grew out of a conversation between two individuals. And I guess the moral of that story is be careful what you say on Facebook, because you never know what might happen from something like that. The co-founders of the project are myself and Chance Kokenauer, which you'll also see here. He's there in the back. And it was a conversation between us that began this project. And there's some other people that I specifically want to thank before I get any further into this. And this is the people who are our advisors and mentors as Chance and I are working on this project. Fabio Remendino, who of course was involved in some of the reconstructions of the Buddhas in Afghanistan, as we've seen throughout the day today. And then both my advisors in the University of Murcia in southeast Spain, and Chance's advisor, Dieter, which you also see present here today. And I also want to say thank you to CyArk for having us. It's an amazing event to be part of. And thank you to Layla, who kind of set the groundwork this morning and kind of talked about the backstory of what's going on here. And I should also point out that one of the first emails I got on this project was from Layla, who said, "Thank you for doing this." And it was one of those things that when we got this project started, we had no idea how the community would receive it. Before we even got things going on, we had written emails to people in the American Schools of Oriental Research, the British Research Council, and we're just trying to find out how are people going to feel about us trying to reconstruct heritage that's been destroyed. Are people going to feel like their toes are getting stepped on? Are people going to feel like we're invading their territory? And everyone just simply said, "I have no idea. So go for it." And Layla was one of the first ones to contact us and to say thank you. And it was an affirmation of this project and made us feel like, yeah, actually, this is good, what's happening here. So kind of a brief history. The destruction of cultural heritage, and certainly for ideological purposes, is nothing new. We have the burning of the Mayan codices. That happens back in the 16th century, and of course we could roll back before that and find all kinds of destructions and appropriations of heritage to kind of remove those ideologies. More recently, 2001, of course, we see the destruction of the Buddhas, as has been pointed out in several presentations today. And then, of course, in the Mosul Museum, which was destroyed in the end of February this year. And more recently now, we're seeing Palmyra, and I mean, this just seems to go on and on and on. And of course, we can say, why are people destroying this? Ideology. You're using the past to support a certain narrative that you want to take out and spread to the world. For example, if you are destroying the tombstones, as was pointed out earlier, this is a way to remove any past populations that may have been in an area. It's a way to take away that part of the narrative. Destroying saints' tombs, whether it be a different version of Islam, whether it be a Jewish or Christian saint, is a way to remove that part of the narrative. If you erase that narrative from the landscape, eventually people are like, well, maybe it was never there after all. And so by removing these, destroying these, we see that it's a major part of the way to create a new ideology and a new narrative. And then really there's the very real part of this, which is to make money. It really does seem in the case of the self-proclaimed Islamic State, they're destroying sites that they've looted, so you don't know what they looted. And then they're getting these pieces out on the black market, you have no idea where they're coming from. So you can't necessarily point back and say, oh yeah, it's a piece from Palmyra. You just simply don't know. So Project Mosul started because of this thread on Facebook. It basically said, I posted a post in our initial training network for digital cultural heritage. This is a Marie Curie funded program that both Chance and I are fellows on, PhD researchers in this project. And we try to keep an active Facebook page that talks about current events and cultural heritage. And seeing this was really something that hit close to my heart because my first degree was really focused on Assyriology. There's nothing more fun than a good cuneiform tablet. Trust me on that one. And so, seeing the destruction of a place like the Mosul Museum was a little bit too close to home. I've been working in Jordan for the last 11 years, and seeing the increased political instability in the region, it's very easy for me to imagine this happening to the sites that I've invested more than a decade of my life in. So as a way to stand in solidarity with them, we posted this, and it just simply says, in the past 24 hours, the video of ISIS destroying priceless artifacts in the Mosul has gone viral. Our hearts break at the sight of such pointless destruction. We also offer our sympathy to the archaeologists, curators, researchers, scientists, and countless others who have invested their lives into those precious objects. It is moments like these that the research being done by the ITN-DCH becomes even more poignant. The holistic approach to heritage promises the possibility to restore those artifacts destroyed by the Islamic State. Chance responded to this thread and said, you know, we could actually crowdsource the images for some of these artifacts and start reconstructing it. Our project coordinator for the ITN-DCH calls us up and said, fellas, this is a great idea. Do it, but you have to do it in your free time. No problem, right? So we talked about it, and this is when we had conversations. We tried to figure out how would the professional community receive this? How would governments receive this? How are people going to feel about it? And really, when we got the big answer, we have no idea. So a week later, we launched Project Mosul. So 27th of February, this video is released. By the 8th of March, the project is in the wild, and really, you know, Chance and I figured we'd get like a dozen people interested in it, you know, have some photos, upload them, we would do some photogrammetric reconstructions, and that would be the end of the story. And 6 months later, I'm standing on the stage here talking to you about what is continuing to grow and what is now in the wild with this project. For example, one of the things that has made us shift our concept, because in reality when we started this, we were thinking only of the Mosul Museum and focusing strictly on that site. But then the earthquake in Nepal and the loss of many of the sites that we'd see, like in Durbar Square in Kathmandu, raised the question as well as, well, we should be doing something with this. What we've created for Mosul also works for Nepal. And so one of our project partners, N-Frames, did a massive reconstruction of Durbar Square, both before and after the destruction, which you'll see later on in the presentation. And then, of course, we're seeing the continued destruction happening in Palmyra right now, and crowdsourcing that, you know, at the same time, as soon as Palmyra got into the news, we began to see a massive influx of images to our website. You know, because obviously a lot more people have been to Palmyra in the age of digital cameras than they have been to the Mosul Museum, which effectively has been closed since the American invasion of Iraq in 2003, which predates the digital camera revolution. And by that I mean when everyone has a mobile phone in their pocket with a half-decent camera. You know, so we don't have the kind of images for the Mosul Museum that we have for sites like Palmyra and sites that have been heavily visited since then. Since the launch of the project, we saw a lot of media attention to it. And in large part, that's thanks to Sketchfab, who caught on to our project earlier and actually made a very intentional effort to get our project into the news. So they have a fairly large press following, and so they told all of their people, hey, check out this project, look what they're doing, you should talk about this. And so it began to spread and spread and spread, and obviously mostly in English, but we also have a fairly large press releases that have come out in French. And of course, this has helped considerably. Both of these areas tend to cover some of the major tourists who have gone to places like Syria and Palmyra. And so they're our major base for getting the images. And obviously when you're trying to do something like crowdsourcing, the more people who hear about the project, the more possibility we have to get those sorts of images that we actually need for the project. So I want to briefly walk you through how this actually works, just to kind of introduce you to the concept of what Project Mosul is right now. It has a basic workflow, 4 different steps. The first one is simply that a user can come to the website and identify a site where heritage has been lost. And again, that can be through human means, natural means, earthquake, terrorism, whatever it might be, and drop a pin on a map locating where that heritage has been destroyed. And that's important because we want to have that geolocation information for any of the sites that are actually there. After a site has been identified, it's now open to the public to upload whatever images that they may have of those sites. And that includes both scanned imagery, digital imagery, whatever it might be, but to start filling that area with their own images that they might have. Then we depend also on the volunteer community to help organize those images into some sort of relevant grouping of similar images that they might want to do. Taking, for example, a site like Nineveh or Nimrud are fairly large sites that would be difficult to do a reconstruction, photogrammetrically speaking, all at one time, especially if we're missing significant parts of those images. So those groupings may be that people are working on a single relief as part of that site, or a part of a monument, or a single area there, and they're creating those groupings. And likewise, this also lets users kind of collaborate together. So maybe one guy starts a grouping, and he says, well, that's really good, I want to do that. And then they copy that grouping and then start adding their own images or doing something along the same lines there. But those groupings are the fundamental part of what happens after this, because then we can download those groupings of images, begin to do a photogrammetric reconstruction. And again, this is what users are doing. They're using their own software, whether it may be something like Agisoft PhotoScan, Visual SFM, N-Frames, 3D Flow, Memento, whatever it might be. Users can use their own things to do that. And we've had users who have done their own sort of sculpting as well. So maybe they're finding that they just can't get a photogrammetric reconstruction. So they're actually going through and doing a full 3D sculpting of the objects that have been destroyed, which of course takes a lot more time, but as a way to kind of recreate what has been lost there. So just to take you through what this actually looks like when someone comes to the web page, the first thing that they're going to see are these, this map up top here, which identifies current sites that have been identified around the world. You can see where a concentration of sites is, but of course this could be anywhere else. We could be dropping pins in North America, we could be dropping pins in Canada, we could be dropping pins in South America, wherever it might be. This is not limited to this area, and as those pins are dropped, that map automatically expands to encompass all of the available sites there. And then there's just simply some basic statistics there, which are images that aren't belonging to any current reconstruction group right now, and could potentially be so. And then we kind of left masking in there, although we're not so sure that we want people to really mask it, because good photogrammetry shouldn't require you to mask those images. However, we're working with not such great images. And so oftentimes, going through masking those images will produce better results. And so we're talking to MicroCasts right now, which is another crowdsourcing platform, and they're going to try and develop a masking tool that we can just automatically plug into what they're doing. They have some good masking tools already in place, and so if we can do that, it'll automatically make it easy for volunteers to come in, mask some images while they're watching their favorite TV shows, whatever it might be, and have those as another possibility for people to use as part of their photogrammetric reconstructions. Then when we actually go to a site, so this is what would happen if you went to Palmyra right now, you would see that here are some of the reconstructions that have been started to be put together. These aren't actually the 3D reconstructions, it's kind of a bit of a misnomer. It's really just meaning to say a grouping of images for reconstruction. So we have the images that belong to the Temple of Bel. People have started to put into that group. Sometimes we'll have more than one of those, and that's fine, because someone may say, okay, I want to do my own grouping of images because I don't quite like how this other grouping was, whatever it might be. But it allows them to work through on that kind of their own workflow there. As you enter one of those areas, you have the option, this is at the same location, you can just upload the images. It's a box you can just drag in however many images you want. It's a nice little JavaScript uploader, so it makes it really easy for people to just simply dump a whole bunch of images on there. I should say at this moment as well, we're working on kind of updating the licensing of the whole system. We had a great conversation with Wikimedia last week, which was kind of helping explain some of the Creative Commons licenses, how that could work, still allowing users to choose their own license for the images, but then at the same time encouraging people to go for open culture licenses as we're working on the site. Once you go into one of the reconstructions, you see all the different options there. You have the chance to just kind of organize within it. You can remove an image from the grouping, and then you can also add images. So this shows all of the images at the location. We started working on doing some pre-matching with some computer vision algorithms in the background. The problem is it crashes the server right now. And with only having one server, we can't afford to have those algorithms in place. So as we get more server power, then we'll actually be able to rank those images according to most likely matches. So we're helping the users figure out what images are most similar to that. And then as of Sunday night, this is how it works, which is a complete integration with Flickr. So as I mentioned before, that geolocation that we have, whenever you now go to a site, you're presented with this interface here, which is automatically searching for, through Flickr's geo interface, any images at the same location with an open license. So anything that doesn't require copyright, we can download those, import those, keep all that same metadata from Flickr, because a lot of people have like a Creative Commons with attribution, so we have to cite their photos as part of that photogrammetric reconstruction. But because of this, we can now just simply click a button and we start importing those photos to our grouping of photos as well, as a way to increase the potential for photos that we may not have been able to find before. And of course, now that we've done this for Flickr, we could probably do this for Facebook. We can touch into Picasa Web. Anything that has a geo-photo searching interface, we can do the same sort of thing, increase the possibility. And we also have this little slider bar here. By default, it's set to anything around 20 meters from the lat-long coordinate pair that we have, but you can increase that up to 250 meters, but then it gives you a lot more photography that you have to sort through at that point in time. Since the beginning of the project, of course, we started out with a batch of photos that was thanks to Suzanne Bott, Mary Prophet, and Diane Seabrand, who were some of the U.S. military personnel sent to evaluate the state of the cultural heritage in Iraq around 2008 and 2009. And they gave us about 350 images from the Mosul Museum, which were the basis for the beginning of the project and where we were able to begin to do the kind of work that we're talking about. And then you can see again, as the news is coming out about ISIS being in Palmyra, we get a spike of uploads there. Kind of fades off, and then with the destruction of Palmyra, we begin to see a spike in uploads again. So obviously a project like ours is directly tied to the news media. Anytime a site is mentioned, we find that people come to it. The news media reaches out to us. They're like, hey, because we have this going on, we want to talk about your story, which then gets people excited about it, which then gets more photos, which then helps us do the reconstruction. So it's kind of a cycle that goes there, and it certainly is dependent on having that connection with the public. Some of the reconstructions that have actually happened so far are displayed here. It would be great if I could show you all of this live, but that would take a little bit more time. These are all available on the 3D gallery on our site. But there's just some of these reliefs that we have. This is an interesting one because the fellow who did it did a partial photogrammetric reconstruction and then touched up the parts with actual 3D modeling to kind of complete that reconstruction. So it's an absolutely beautiful reconstruction, and compared with the photographs, it's great what we're actually seeing there. We have a sculpture here. This sculpture from Patra is really interesting because this is actually done from a video as well. So we're actually able to take video as well as photographs to do the same kind of reconstructions. And then to show you what some of these actually look like, this is using Autodesk's Memento. And you can see there are significant parts that are missing from these sorts of things, because this was done with 16 photographs. None of the photographs cover the backside, and we're missing the whole half of the lion's face from the front side there. But that same model, we've then had a student at the University of Murcia clean it up and prepare it for printing. And I know this is a little bit small for most of you to see, unless you have very good eyes, but this is printed on a hobbyist printer, so it's missing all the detail. You're not going to see there. This is covered with cuneiform writing on the side of the lion, and I've been informed that the back side of the lion had a cuneiform inscription on it as well. So at least with this, we can prove that there's a possibility to do the printing. At the same time, we are emphatic with the community to say that we may be able to print this, but we have no way to promise any sort of geometric fidelity with what we're doing here with the original object. And then it raises all kinds of points in the conversations. Well, what's the authentic object? In the case of something actually being destroyed, what becomes the authentic object at that point in time? And so it begins to raise new points of conversation. Also here is the video of Durbar Square, and this is pretty cool because we actually had Sketchfab kind of put together a special viewer just to handle this. And so you can see, this is before, and this is a massive data set that N-Frames was able to process and put together. And I mean, obviously, when you look at some of the buildings, you get kind of the melting effect that happens in these larger sort of data sets. But the concept is here, the possibility is here to really work on that. And then at the same time, you can just see the shocking difference when these buildings are gone and the height difference that you just see in that same square. And it's something that you see with this that you probably couldn't see in another way. So it's really pretty incredible to see. So we have some projects that are happening right now as well. We are working on Palmyra. These two shots are specifically from a guy named Conan Persons, who is created a Facebook group called the Palmyra Photogrammetry Group, and we're working with him to try to get some of these things reconstructed. He's done a couple of reconstructions which are both still standing as far as we know, but the possibility to do things in Palmyra certainly exists. We're working with the Rijksmuseum van Uden in Leiden. They are doing the first international exhibit on Nineveh starting next fall, and we're going to have a small part of that exhibit where we can show some of the artifacts that have been destroyed from Nineveh and from the Mosul Museum as a way to demonstrate to the public that we can now visualize these in new formats. So we'll do some virtual displays, maybe do something with an Oculus Rift or a Google Cardboard, so people can interact with these and experience them in new mediums. And then The Economist has been putting together a virtual museum of the Mosul Museum as best as they can, and putting what artifacts have been reconstructed back into that museum so that people can now go through it virtually as if they were at the Mosul Museum and actually see what's there. So just kind of summing up what the website actually looks like. Hopefully I didn't overclick. I did. So the tools that we have, there we go. Fundamentally, we're dealing with locations. Sites are separated into locations. This is a major concept of the site. One of the things that we're wanting to put in now are the ideas of both tasks and gamification. Gamification is a motivating factor. I don't know if any of you are data-driven individuals. I know that I am. Anybody who's a cyclist and has used Strava, if you know what I'm talking about, you probably are nodding your head and you get it. It's just one of those things, it's the data. You want to do that much better on a segment. You want to do that much faster time than the part that you were running before. And so by adding a gamification element that people can get points for participating, for doing a reconstruction, for organizing a photo set, for doing whatever. It's something that we thought about doing originally with the project, but we wanted to respect people's option to be anonymous as well. So people will still be able to remain anonymous on the site, but now that we have a much more global focus, why not open it up that people can have gamification, as well as giving people a dashboard. So as they're working in current reconstruction, whatever it might be, having quick links where they can go back, see what they're already doing, and help speed up that process for them. The 3D gallery, as you've already seen some of the examples from that, continue to improve that and being able to make it easy for people to find particular reconstructions, and then begin to enrich those reconstructions with all the original information, the museum number, where it came from, any information we can find, a bibliography of each of those individual pieces. The entire software that we've created so far is open source and it's available on GitHub. So if you wanted to create Project Mosul Part 2, you can potentially do that, but I'd rather you just help us instead, and rather than trying to compete. We have an API, so that means that all of the data that's on the website is available. You can do machine reading from it, so you can create new applications on top of that, new ways to interact with that. And then we have a community that we try to keep fairly active. We have chat channels for them to interact with each other and with us. As we look forward, one of the biggest things that's always happening is the web development. Like we said before, this is something that we're doing in our free time. So whenever I'm finishing work with the ITN DCH, I'm usually coming home and putting in a few more hours of programming. And it seems that once I finish one task, there's about 10 more that I want to do. So there's always more to that. At the same time, working on better ways to engage with the community, to organize the community, to figure out ways that we can really empower them to do the work, but also get them excited about the projects that they're working on. And then building new narratives, retelling the stories of these artifacts, finding ways through museum exhibitions, virtual museums, whatever it might be, that we can recover that past and actually begin to retell those stories. And then building links, finding other projects that we can be involved in, people who want to participate with us. I really do believe in synergy, and the more that we all work together towards these ends, it's better for everything. And then, kind of in the footsteps of Steve Jobs, I'm going to have to say there's one more thing. Obviously, Project Mosul has a very certain connotation. When people hear it, they seem to assume that our project is only focused in the area of Mosul. But of course, today our project has gone global. We're now focusing all over the area. It's not just Mosul, it's not just northern Iraq, it's not just Syria, it's not just Nepal, it can really be anywhere. So we're really excited to introduce a new name for our project, and we saved this for CyArk because we're just really excited to be working with them. So our new name now is going to be Recre. This is and Chance designed this logo, by the way, and I'm really excited about it. So there will be a new look coming to the website later this week. It should be up by the weekend. That will have all the new branding on it. And Recre is a Esperanto word. We like the idea that it was a universal language that simply means to recreate. We hope we have the pronunciation right. I'm not actually an Esperanto speaker. So if anyone is and you want to tutor me on how to pronounce that properly, that would be great. But as far as I gather, the pronunciation should be Recre, and it should be easy for people to remember. Of course, the project is on social media. You can find us, of course, our Twitter account that is not really yet active because we've been keeping it incognito, but Recre will be there, and Project Mosul will keep that active as well. And then we have the Project Mosul Facebook group and the new Recre Facebook group that will become active as well. And a huge thanks to all of the partners who have supported us along the way. This is something that we could not do without all of the people who have stepped up to really encourage us, help us, guide us along the way. And a specific thanks to both of our home institutions, the University of Murcia, the University of Stuttgart, and the people who are supporting us in this work. Thank you very much.